besties, it's Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. It has been about a year since I did this video concept where I gave authors I hate a second chance. These are not all authors that I absolutely hate. They're just authors that I did not originally like the first book that I read by them, and so I'd like to give them a second chance because I am a charitable and kind person. I just know that these authors have been waiting with bated breath for me to change my opinion on them. They've been watching my channel. They've been wondering, when will Sarah finally like what I have to offer? Today might be the day. I haven't read these books, but to be honest, my prediction is that today will not be the day because I'm quite picky and I tend to not like things for a reason. So we'll see how it goes. But I want to share with you my TBR before we get into all of the vlog clips. So let's discuss it. So the first author is Abby Jimenez. I read The Friend Zone last year and truly thought that was one of the worst romance books I've ever read in my life. Like, I don't even know how that has a fan base. That book is marketed as being rep for women who struggle with fertility, and it's a little bit disrespectful in my opinion with the way that that book goes. To be honest, I really did not want to pick up another Abby Jimenez book after that experience. I was just like so angry after reading that book, but a lot of people swore to me up and down in my comments that her newer release, Part of Your World, is very good. I saw it on a lot of people's favorites list, and so I thought, Miss Abigail, let's give it another shot. Perhaps this was a one-off situation where you wrote a dicey book and you can change and this book will be better. I do not know what Part of Your World is about, so I will let you know the plots of these books when I'm actually in the vlog. The next author is Audrain. I read The Push last year. That was her debut novel, and everyone and their mom, their dog, their grandpa, their uncle, their dad, everyone loved this book so much. So I picked it up last year and I wanted to be one of the people that loved it. I was actually disappointed that I really disliked it. I just did not enjoy that book at all. I did not find it to be very thrilling. It's not really a thriller, it's more of a psychological drama, so I feel like people should honestly stop calling The Push a thriller because it's not giving thrilling vibes. It just didn't work for me. I did not love the aspects of motherhood. There was just a lot of stuff I didn't enjoy about it. But her most recent book just came out. I actually waited to do this vlog for Ashley Audrain's new book because I specifically wanted to give her a second chance, because I actually said earlier that I would like to read her next book. And so this new book is called The Whispers, and I also don't really know what this one's about, but I'm intrigued. I know that it's still going to be like a domestic kind of drama. I know it takes place in a neighborhood, so we'll see if my opinion on Ashley Audrain is improved. I definitely felt like she had good writing. Like, her writing style was something that I found good in The Push. I just didn't like the actual story of The Push. It just wasn't my vibe, and I just couldn't understand why everyone else liked it. I thought it was kind of boring, but maybe this one will be different. The next author is Nevill. I tried reading his book No One Gets Out Alive, which is a haunted house story, and it was just so long. I read it for like a horror vlog, and I was just trying to dabble in horror because I hadn't read that much of it, and I struggled to get through this. I thought it was so long and I didn't find it particularly scary. I know that there's a Netflix movie based off of that book, but I haven't seen it. I don't even know why I brought up the Netflix movie, but if you want to watch that movie, you can. But the book itself, I was not vibing. So the book that I'm going to be giving him a second chance with is The Vessel. I saw Jordaline talking about this book, and I think she might have put it on a favorites list, and it's kind of short. Like, I think it's under 300 pages. So I want to give it a shot. I know it has to do with like a creepy old lady, and old people can be scary as fuck, so we're gonna try it. And then the final author that I'm going to be giving a second chance is Jeneva Rose. The way that I found the first book I read by her, The Perfect Marriage, I actually found through one of her TikToks, and she was doing that book talk trend that used to be a thing where people would talk to the camera as if they were the characters. So she was like, I'm a lawyer and I just found out that my husband killed his mistress and I'm going to defend him in court. And I was like, ooh, juicy tea, tell me more. And at the end she's like, just kidding, I'm an author and that's my book. So I was like, sign me up, I want to read that. And then it proceeded to be one of the worst books I've ever read. It was not a perfect marriage between the two of us. I wanted to get divorced. I did not enjoy that book, and so I put it on my worst list, I believe, of 2021. The thing about her is that I love her presence on TikTok. She is really funny, and also her husband is hilarious. He does a lot of TikToks where he promos her books, and he just is a funny guy. I really enjoy her presence online, and I enjoy her marriage, so I want to like a book by her. I want to give her a second chance. I did give her a really low rating on that first book, so sorry girl if you saw that. I'm here to give you another chance. So one of her newer books that she has come out with is One of Us is Dead. I also don't know what this one is about, and I downloaded it a long time ago because it was offered as a freebie on Audible. Like if you have an Audible account, it was one of the books that you could just download. She did come out with a newer book more recently that has to do with like a girl staying in an Airbnb and something going wrong. That sounds interesting, but I already have this one in my Audible account, so I don't really want to pay for another book. So I'm gonna listen to this one. So we will see if these authors can redeem themselves. Based on how the last video went, not many authors can manage that with me, but I'll give them a shot. This book is misogynistic, it's sexist, it's a little homophobic randomly, and it's not good representation for women who are infertile. Besties, I have the best news for my best besties. I absolutely adored Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I am shocked. I am gagged. I cannot believe this book was as good as it was. The Friend Zone was truly one of the most abysmal, just horrendous, traditionally published romances that I've ever partaken in reading in my life, and this was just such a breath of fresh air. This book is about our two main characters, Alexis and Daniel. Alexis is a doctor and she lives in Minneapolis, and then Daniel is from a really small town and he is both the mayor as well as a bed and breakfast owner. So at the start of this book, Alexis is driving home from a funeral and her car unfortunately breaks down, and Daniel finds her and he helps her out and they have a one-night stand, but then after that they get back in contact and they start like a situationship. Alexis is not really open to a real relationship because she just got out of something abusive, and so she just wants to have fun, and then her and Daniel just like fall in love right away, and it's so sweet. I felt like Daniel was one of the most respectful male love interests that I've ever read in my entire life. Like everything about him I loved so much. I also loved that they had an age gap. He was 28 and she was 38, and he just loved everything about her, and it was so fucking sweet. I loved the dialogue in this, and I loved all the random situations that happened. I actually laughed out loud more than once. The banter between everyone, not just the main characters but also other characters, is just top notch. And it's so weird because I thought the writing in The Friend Zone was so cringy and I rolled my eyes so many times, and I just like hated that book so much. But this one, I don't know what to say. I'm giving it 5 stars because it was just such an amazing experience. It truly felt like reading an Emily Henry novel. So if you like Emily Henry's style of creating like deep connections between the characters and having them have like fleshed out backstories, I feel like Abby really did that in this book. I'm so happy that I loved this. I really get why everyone recommended this to me. Quite a few people said that I would like it because it kind of reminded them of Emily Henry, and everyone is so right. They said forget The Friend Zone, just give this one a try, and I could not agree more. So if you read The Friend Zone and you didn't like it, I definitely would recommend you give this a try. Also, if you like to listen to audiobooks, Julia Whalen actually narrates this, and she is also the person that narrates all of Emily Henry's books as well as Taylor Jenkins Reid. She's just one of my favorite narrators of all time, and she brought a lot of life to this book. I also really enjoyed the male narrator. Narrator is one of those words that the more that you say it, the more you feel like it's not a real word. I am a huge fan of dual POV when I'm reading romance, and so I really loved hearing from both Daniel and Alexis. It also made Daniel's character even more sweet because he just loved her so much. Like if you want a book where the guy is an absolute simp and he would do anything for the female main character, you have to pick this up. Like he was head over heels in love with her. It was definitely a he fell first sort of book. Another thing that I just adored about this book is that it does not rely on the miscommunication trope as the last act. So it's more about them navigating their love for one another and trying to defy the odds, and I definitely enjoyed that so much more than the miscommunication trope. I hate when characters tell each other half-truths and just, you know, leave things out, and then it causes all these things. Like there's definitely moments in this where they're not communicating to the best of their abilities, but there's so much honesty and just raw passion between the two of them. I loved it. I also appreciated the spice level. This isn't a book where you're gonna get like a ton of smutty scenes. They definitely have sex a lot throughout the book, but a lot of it is fade to black or just like very few details, and I didn't mind that actually. I feel like there was a lot of emphasis on the plot and the characters and their development, and the writing in this was also so good. Like this was truly one of the best romance books I've ever read in my life, and I am gagged that I liked it so much because I truly despised The Friend Zone. I actually think that might have been my least favorite book that I read last year, and I was so upset about it. Everything about that book just really, it angered me deeply in my core. But Abigail, you and I, we're best friends now. I love you for writing this book. I look forward to reading other books by you. Hopefully all of her other ones feel just as good as this one. I will be sad if she's sort of a hit or miss for me. I would love if The Friend Zone was just kind of a one-off where I didn't really like it and everything else is really great. So we'll see how that lands, but it's so wild how different this book felt from The Friend Zone. Like, I don't even know. It's just, it was so good. This actually was in my unhaul pile because I had such a bad experience with the friend zone. So I thought I was gonna be getting rid of this and I just hadn't gotten around to doing it. And now I'm just so grateful that I own it because I love when I'm talking about a book I love and I can just be like, you know, like throwing it around and like tapping it and just talking about how good it is and like giving it a hug and giving it, no, I'm actually not gonna kiss it because I have lip gloss on right now. But thank you, Book of the Month, for sending me this. And this video is not sponsored by them, but they did send me this last year, and I'm really grateful to have a copy of one of my favorite romances of all time. The writing is honestly just horrifically bad, and the dialogue is super stunted. Like, when the people are talking, you're like, what human would ever speak this way? Like, this does not feel like a very natural, flowing conversation. I have conducted a Geneva Convention, and unfortunately, a treaty has not been drawn, and Miss Geneva Rose will not be pardoned. I'm so sorry to say, but after finishing One of Us is Dead, I don't think Geneva Rose is the author for me. We do have to give credit where credit is due. I would definitely admit that One of Us is Dead was a lot better than The Perfect Marriage. The Perfect Marriage was laughably bad. Like, it was really cringy, and I found the writing style to be very try-hard. I remember that she used a lot of big vocabulary and she tried to sound really smart, but it just kind of was giving that she had never researched how cops do investigations, how lawyers work. It felt very like she just made it up on a whim. This one, on the other hand, I feel like she was digging into some past of hers and she definitely knew what she was talking about. The weird thing is that this book took place in Atlanta, specifically in Buckhead. So it centers on these women that are very, very wealthy. So what you need to know about Buckhead in Atlanta is that it is one of the wealthier areas. So there's a lot of mansions and just really rich people that live over there. I have never actually seen an episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta, but I feel like that's what this book was giving, but honestly the Wish version. It also reminded me a lot of Desperate Housewives, but again, not as good. So when the book opens, we are told that there has been a death and we don't yet know who has died. And so the first character that we're introduced to is a woman named Jenny who owns a salon in Buckhead. This salon that she owns in Buckhead is extremely exclusive, and in order to be a client, you have to have a membership there. And so all the wealthy women that this story focuses on are all members at the salon, and so the salon is the meeting place of a lot of their drama. And so like I was saying, someone has been murdered and Jenny is giving her testimony to a detective. And so we kind of flash between Jenny talking to this cop and then also seeing what happened in the days and months leading up. Then we're introduced to Olivia, who is the cartoonish villain of this book. She is the meanest rich lady that we hear from. One thing I think this book suffered from was too many POVs. We actually get a POV from pretty much every main character, and for me, I feel like that really took me out of the story and made me feel like I could really predict what was going on. Like in Olivia's perspective, one thing would happen and then we would jump over to Shannon, who was a wealthy real estate agent who also went to the salon. And then there was also Shannon, who used to be married to a politician, but he cheated on her and divorced her, and now he's married to Crystal. I would hear something happen in one of their perspectives and then the next perspective would come up and there'd be way too many clues. So I feel like there wasn't a lot of stuff to be surprised by. This book was essentially just a whole lot of petty drama between these women, and the actual like thriller part of it doesn't happen until like the last, I want to say like 15% of it. A lot of it happens off page and we only hear a summary of what happened later after everything has gone down. So I think ultimately this book just kind of fell flat for me. I think I'm going to give it 2 stars, maybe 2.5 stars. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever read, but it definitely wasn't the best either. And if I wasn't reading it for a video, I might have even DNF'd because I found it to be kind of boring. Another thing that bothered me is that as someone who is from Atlanta, I'm not exactly an expert on Buckhead. I don't go to Buckhead a ton. I don't really love Buckhead, to be honest. A lot of people refer to Buckhead as fuckhead for a reason. But as someone who lives in the greater Atlanta area, it's just always weird for me to read a book that takes place near where I live. The word Buckhead came up no less than 200 times in this book. Like every other page, they were like, we're the women of Buckhead. We gave them a Buckhead smile. You know how Buckhead smiles are. Buckhead smiles are fake. All these Buckhead ladies, all these Buckhead rich ladies, Buckhead, Buckhead, Buckhead. Like the word Buckhead was so overused in the text and it just really irked me. I don't know if it just stuck out to me because I live near Buckhead and I've been there before, but I didn't enjoy that. Geneva, you seem like a lovely person. There is a very mild, very small chance that I'll pick up another book by you, but unfortunately I don't think we get along. But I will give you credit that this book was better than the other one that I read. I just didn't think it was exceptionally good. I don't love the pacing. I think it's really slow. Like I'm just like, could we hurry it up? Could we do more of the haunting? Could we do more of like what the landlord is doing? Like, can we just hurry it up? Okay, besties, I have finished The Vessel by Adam Nevill. That sort of rhymes. And I have good news. I did like this. I'm going to be giving it 3 stars, but only because I wanted more from the story, but it wasn't bad. I definitely think this shorter length was a lot better for me with Adam Nevill. The last book, I was just dying for it to be over. It felt so long. Like, I literally think it was like 400 pages. Something interesting about Adam Nevill is he loves to explore horror through the eyes of someone who is not doing well financially. Something that I noticed in No One Gets Out Alive is that the fact that the main character can't afford to get out of this haunted house situation that she's in. Basically in that story, she's renting out a room in a place that ends up being haunted, but because she's living in poverty, she's unable to move out, so she's subjected to all the horrors that go on. And so I noticed that with this book as well. Our main character Jess is a single mom and she is not doing well, and so she takes on this caregiving job for this old woman. This old woman has dementia, and when Jess gets to the house, she expects the typical case that she's used to dealing with, which is just an elderly person that needs help, and you know, it's a little bit hard to deal with. But this woman is very mean and vile. She attacks Jess when she first meets her, and she just has an overall creepy vibe about her. And then she's tasked with doing the night shift, and unfortunately, because she's a single mom, she can't find someone to take care of her daughter, so she's to bring her to the shift. And when she gets there, the old woman's personality completely changes, and she's really nice to the little girl, and it's just kind of eerie. And so the whole time you're kind of wondering what's going on with this old woman. And as you get further in the story, there's definitely some kind of witchy things that start happening. I definitely would say that this is a folk horror. It reminded me a lot of an Ari Aster movie. Specifically, it felt like a combination between Midsummer and Hereditary. What I would really like to see is this book being adapted into a film, because I feel like A24 would do a really good job with it, specifically Ari Aster. I don't know if Ari Aster should be the one that directs it, only because it does have a lot of similarities to both Midsummer and Hereditary. It really feels like those two movies had a baby and made this book. The only reason I'm giving it 3 stars is because it just didn't deliver enough punches. It felt kind of like the outline of a story, and I know I was just complaining about the other book being too long, and it's not that I wanted this book to be longer, I just wanted the use of the pages to be a lot better. I feel like we spent a lot of time getting to know Jess and her daughter, which is really great because they felt like real characters, but there was so much about the drama between her and her ex-husband and him being abusive that was on page. There wasn't enough of the creepy stuff, so I really wanted to get back to what was going on with this old lady. And then at the end, it wraps up really quickly and it's just kind of all over the place. And I did really like the ending. Like, I keep thinking about it just at random moments throughout my day. So overall, this is a very strong 3 stars for me. I really did like a lot of things about it, but I think the pacing was still kind of off for me. So I think that's maybe just something that I struggle with Adam Nevill. I feel like I was going to say something more intellectual about how he uses poverty as a plot device, but honestly, it's just something that I noticed in both books. And so it's very interesting that he does that, because it does really add to the stress of the novel, because these people like literally cannot leave. I think one thing when you're watching a scary movie or reading a book and the people don't really have a reason to stay in that situation, you're kind of yelling at the book or the TV being like, stop being a stupid bitch and just get out of there. But that wraps up my thoughts on this book. I don't have a ton to say because I did like a lot of aspects of it. I feel like if you're in the mood for something short that reminds you of an A24 movie, I definitely think you should pick this up. But other than that, it was fine. And I don't know if I'll read Adam Nevill again, but I do feel like he was redeemed in my eyes. I hated the push so much. Like, you don't understand the feelings that it created in my heart while I was reading it. You go into the plot thinking one thing, and then you come out and you're like, there was no twist. Okay, besties, a couple of orders of business. Number 1, I got this Fourth Wing shirt off of Etsy, and I'm obsessed with it. If you didn't watch my last vlog, I read a bunch of hype books and Fourth Wing was one of them. Spoiler alert, I loved it. I'm sorry for all the people who expected me to hate it. I know it's very on brand for me to hate a book like that, but I did indeed become a stan, and I own a t-shirt now and I love it. I've been wearing it for like 3 days straight. I'm not dirty, that's normal. Second order of business, I have finished The Whispers by Ashley Audrain, and I am very conflicted on how to rate this book. I want to give it 2 stars, but I also kind of want to give it 3 stars. This book is not a thriller. This book is about a bunch of women that live in a neighborhood, and one of them has a bad relationship with her son, and at the start of the book he ends up in an accident and nobody really knows what happened or if she was involved. And then there's all these memories of times that she mistreated him and things that the neighbors witnessed. And then another character is a woman who thinks that her husband is cheating on her and she's really anxious, but she's more of a doting mother than the other character. And then there's a woman that's a doctor who is dealing with infertility. Trigger warning for miscarriages if you do want to read this book. And this book is boring. I'm so sorry to say it. It's so boring. With The Push, I think the reason I despise it so much is that it was so hyped up and everyone said it was an amazing thriller. And then I read it and it wasn't a thriller. It was more of a psychological drama. Everyone was like, the twist in The Push is insane. And then I read it and I was like, pretty sure I knew what was gonna happen from page one, it didn't feel very creative actually, now that you say it. With this one, I went in with the right expectations. First of all, no one's really been talking about it. I have not seen any other booktuber review it. I've seen people haul it, but I've not heard anyone else's opinions thus far. This is just my honest opinion, not looking at Goodreads, not seeing other booktubers. So the hype for me was not very high because no one's hyped this up. And I'm gonna be honest, after reading this, I don't think people are gonna hype this one up. I actually think that people who love to push are gonna find this one kind of boring. Anyway, I went in knowing that this probably was gonna be more of a drama than a thriller, since that was what her last book was. And this was even less thrilling than the other one, and less dramatic too. Like, it was dramatic in that there was a lot of petty things going on and these women were acting a little out of pocket, but overall it was just kind of boring. Like, I wanted more from the twists and turns. Like, I predicted a lot of where it was going. I feel like when you have too many POVs, it makes it easier to guess what's going on in the plot. And so because I was hearing from all 4 of these women, I kind of always knew what the next plot beat was going to be. And overall, I didn't care. And I also don't care about motherhood. I'm so sorry to say that. If you have children, I love that for you. I love that you are such a strong person and you're so selfless, and that's amazing that you did that with your life. I personally don't like kids, don't want kids. Reading about motherhood is not something that I enjoy doing, and it feels like that is all actually Audrain wants to write about, because the last book was very much about motherhood, and then this one was even more about motherhood because we're hearing from 4 different mothers, well, 3 mothers and an aspiring mother. And so it's just constantly the battle between all of these characters thinking about their different feelings on motherhood, which again is an interesting topic to explore for some, but for me, you should know. They say write what you know, and apparently all Ashley Audrain knows is writing about motherhood, which is interesting because a lot of her themes are about how mothers no longer have an identity after they are moms. And if she's a mom and she keeps writing about motherhood, it's like she is infusing her career with her role as a mother, which is interesting, and maybe you could write like a paper about that. But as a general book that I want to enjoy, I don't know. If anyone tries to claim that this is a thriller, do not believe them. This is not a thriller. Even though we are dealing with the injury of this little boy, it takes such a backseat to the rest of the dramas in the story and the who's sleeping with who and who's doing what. Like, it was giving more like Desperate Housewives. A little less dramatic, but like these people were acting kind of a lot. I usually love multiple POVs, but I feel like the pacing really suffered because we were bouncing around so much. And I typically like stories that are told out of order because we get a lot of the memories and situations out of order, and I normally love that, especially in a book that's supposed to be like a mystery. But again, there was something about it. I was just not living for it. Also, there was this one character that everyone was obsessed with, and I was like, for why? She also was like the worst mother out of all of them, which that was the point. Like, she was supposed to be this woman that everyone is jealous of, but then she can't figure out how to be a proper mother, and it was like blah blah blah. The one woman who thought her husband was cheating on her, I couldn't with her. Like, I wanted to support her, I really did. Like, it sucked that she thought her husband was cheating on her, but she was just kind of irritating. Like, she was really irritating to read from, and the husband was just such a loser. I hate when you're reading a book like this that's supposed to be like a psychological drama or a thriller and it's all about how the husbands suck. I'm just so tired of that trope. Domestic thrillers are probably my least favorite subgenre of thrillers. How many times can we read about a husband being a loser that's cheating? Like, it's getting old, it's getting stale. I truly feel like this is not going to be a hyped up book. Like, The Push was one that everyone loved. I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed by this release. That's my prediction. You heard it here first, folks. Let me know if that ends up being the case. I will be watching for everyone else's reviews, and if you've read it, please let me know down below if you liked it, if you liked The Push, if you liked this. But ultimately, I don't know if Ashley Audrain is for me. I would need to be assured 100,000% that the next book is not going to be about motherhood for me to want to read it. I also feel like if she releases a 3rd book like this, it's gonna get a little old. It's gonna get a little stale, and we're gonna need you to move on. To be honest, I've heard a lot of mothers even say that they also don't like to read about motherhood because they already experience it every day. So unfortunately, I don't think Ashley Audrain was redeemed for me. I can admit that she's a good writer and that her actual prose is good, but I think the stories that she wants to tell are just stories that I'm not interested in. But that brings me to the end of this video. Let me know if you've read any of these books down below and what you think of these authors. Also, if you've made it to the end and you enjoyed this video, feel free to use the dragon emoji in your comment in honor of my super cute 4th Wing shirt. Also, huge announcement, I just hit 30,000 subscribers. I cannot believe my taboo romance vlog completely popped off and went kind of viral. Not viral in like real YouTube terms, but for me viral, like over 100,000 views. And I now have over 30,000 subscribers, which is insane because literally like 3 weeks ago I only had like 26,000. And so I'm so grateful to everyone who is new here, as well as everyone who's been with me since the beginning. No matter how long you've been subscribed to me, I love you guys so much. In honor of hitting 30K and all of my new subscribers, I'm going to be doing a Q&A so that you guys can learn a little bit more about me. So feel free to leave a question down below. It could be book related, it could be personal, whatever you want to know about me, I am happy to answer, and I'll post that video soon. Thank you all so much for watching. You're all beautiful. Have a nice day.